Right now, as you read these words, something is happening. There is awareness, a quiet sense that someone is here, understanding, receiving. You might call that presence you. But Buddhism, for over 1.500 years, has gently pointed to something surprising. There is no one behind your eyes. This may sound strange because it really does feel like someone is here. You feel like you're the one thinking these thoughts, feeling these feelings, living this life. But the Buddha taught something radical and compassionate, the doctrine of no self, anatta. He didn't say you don't exist in a conventional way. He said that the solid, me, we believe in is not what it seems. That the self is not a fixed thing but a flowing process, ever-changing, dependent, and empty of a core essence. According to Buddhism, there is no unchanging soul, no permanent essence inside you that stays the same from one moment to the next. This teaching of anatta stands alongside impermanence and suffering as one of the three fundamental marks of all existence. But still, let's be honest, doesn't it feel like someone is here? Someone hearing these words, someone behind the scenes, watching? That sense of presence is so familiar that we rarely question it. We wake up and think, I had strange dreams. We eat and say, I'm hungry. All day long, there's this gentle assumption that someone is home. Someone is in charge. Someone is living this life. The Buddha understood this feeling. In the Gautam Sutta, there's a touching moment. The monk Gautam, who is gravely ill but deeply wise, is asked by other monks, do you see a self in the five aggregates, form, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, or consciousness? He says, no. Do you see a self apart from them? Again, he replies, no. Then why? They ask, do you still say, I am? And Gautam replies with quiet honesty, even though I do not take any of these as self, there is still a subtle feeling of I am, like the scent left behind by a flower. You can't see it, but it lingers. This is where many of us live, in that gentle trace of selfhood. We may understand intellectually that there's no fixed self. We may even glimpse moments in meditation when the I disappears. But when we return to daily life, the sense of being someone quietly returns. And that's not a mistake. That's not something to get rid of. It's something to notice. The Buddha wasn't trying to destroy your experience. He was inviting you to look more deeply into it, not to turn away, but to see clearly what this I actually is. It's a bit like watching a film. You know the characters aren't real. You know it's all images and sound. But that doesn't stop you from laughing or crying. Knowing it's not solid doesn't make the experience vanish. It just frees you from clinging. In the same way, the feeling of being someone is a real part of experience. But it's not what we think it is. It's not a fixed entity. It's more like a pattern, a fragrance, a useful story, present, but not solid, real, but not permanent. So when Buddhism says there's no one behind your eyes, it's not denying your life. It's inviting you to look again, gently, curiously, to notice how this self appears, how it changes, how it dissolves, to see it not as a thing to hold, but as a process to observe. And when you start to look, you might begin to see something unexpected, that this sense of being someone is not something you are. It's something that's happening, a moment of knowing rising and falling within something far more open. Something wordless, wide, and quietly watching. 2. Not a person, just a process. The Buddha gave us a simple, practical way to look deeper into this mystery. He spoke of the five aggregates, skandhas, form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. These five are what make up experience. And together, they create what we usually call the self. But here's the radical insight. None of them is a person. They're not things you own. They're not things you are. They're just processes, flowing, changing, unfolding. Take form, the body. Right now, you can feel your body sitting, breathing, maybe shifting slightly. But is this body truly you? The Buddha pointed out that the body is impermanent, constantly changing. The cells you had 7 years ago are gone, and the ones you have now are changing even as you read this. Then there's feeling, the tone of experience, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Maybe these words feel calming, or just neutral, but feelings never stay. They rise, they fade, they vanish like ripples in water. Perception is what helps us name and recognize. You hear a sound and know it's a voice, a bird, or passing traffic. But perception, too, is unreliable. We mishear, missee, and mistake one thing for another all the time. Mental formations, thoughts, intentions, habits, emotions, are what give the illusion of continuity. I'm thinking about lunch. I want to go for a walk. These inner movements feel so personal, but they shift constantly. Thoughts appear, pass, and disappear. Emotions rise and dissolve. There is no stable core behind them. And finally, consciousness, the bare knowing. The part that seems most like me. The awareness that hears these words. But even consciousness changes. When you're in deep sleep. Where is it? When you're lost in a movie. It shifts. It's not a fixed self. Just a stream of knowing conditioned by contact and attention. So where is the person in all this? The Buddha's answer is clear. There is no fixed self to be found. Just 5 processes, dynamic, fluid, and always changing. You can explore this directly. Try something simple like drinking a glass of water. Normally we say, I'm drinking, but what's actually happening? There's form, your hand, the glass, the sensation of coolness, the feeling may be pleasant, the perception, recognizing this is water, the mental formation, the intention to drink, and the consciousness, the knowing of the whole experience. But look closely. Where is the drinker? There's no one behind the act. Just conditions coming together. Just a moment unfolding. When we examine experience this way, something profound begins to shift. We start to see that life is not being lived by someone. It is simply living itself. This doesn't erase experience. It softens it. It brings space. It lifts the burden of always having to be somebody. You don't have to carry your identity like a heavy stone. You don't have to guard your ego or protect some imagined core. You can just let experience flow moment by moment, without clinging, without a self to defend. This is not emptiness in a sad sense. It's freedom. It's the beginning of peace. 3. The final trap. Holding on to no self. Now we come to something subtle and slippery. Sometimes when someone begins to grasp the teaching of no self, they feel a surge of insight. I get it now. There is no self. But pause for a moment. Who just got it? Who is celebrating that understanding? This is the final trap the Buddha warned us about. The ego dressing itself in spiritual wisdom. The mind is clever. It doesn't mind hearing about emptiness as long as it can still be the one who knows it. The ego quietly whispers, I'm the one who understands no self. I'm the one who has seen through the illusion. And just like that, we've built a new identity. The identity of the one who has no identity. In the Alagaddapama Sutta, the Buddha gives us a powerful image. He says, the Dharma is like a raft. You use it to cross a river from suffering to freedom. But once you reach the other side, you don't carry the raft on your back. You set it down. The inside of anatta is just such a raft. It's a tool, not a trophy. If we begin to cling to it, if we turn it into another concept to hold, then we've only built a more subtle kind of prison. Sometimes people who study emptiness become very proud of their detachment. They speak about awakening, about seeing through illusion, and look down on others who still believe in a self. But this is not liberation. It's the ego wearing a more spiritual mask. The Buddha was very precise. He said, if you cling even to right views, how much more to wrong views? Even the truth can bind you if you grasp it too tightly. Real freedom comes not from holding a perfect view, but from letting go of all views, even the correct ones. This doesn't mean we abandon wisdom. It means we stop using wisdom to reinforce a fixed sense of me. We stop needing to be right. We stop needing to be someone. This is not easy. The mind wants something to stand on, a position, a belief, a conclusion. It's deeply uncomfortable to rest in the unknown, to be present without a story. But that discomfort is a doorway. It shows us how much we depend on mental constructions to feel safe. We think if we just understand enough, we'll be okay. If we can just hold the right view, then life will make sense. But the Buddha gently invites us to let that go. 2. Sometimes people ask, if I let go of all views, how will I know what's true? The answer is both simple and profound. Truth is not something you possess. It's something you become available to. When the grasping stops, even briefly, truth can shine through, not as a thought, not as a theory, but as presence, as peace. This is why the Buddha said, even the Dharma must be abandoned. The teachings are like medicine to help us heal. But once healing has taken place, we no longer cling to the bottle. The path doesn't end in knowledge. It ends in letting go. 4. No one is seeing, but seeing still happens. Now we arrive at the quiet heart of Buddhist meditation. There's a simple but powerful instruction the Buddha gave to a monk named Bahiya. In the seen, there is only the seen. In the heard, only the heard. In the sensed, only the sensed. In the known, only the known. These words are easy to miss, but they point to something deeply liberating. Normally, when we look at a tree, we think, I am seeing that tree. But what if there is no I behind the eyes? What if there's just seeing? This is not an abstract philosophy. It's something you can notice right now. Look around, perhaps at your hand or a cup or a patch of light on the wall. Instead of thinking, I see it, simply notice. Seeing is happening. No seer is required. The mind usually divides experience into subject and object. Someone who sees and something that is seen. But this split is a mental habit. It's not necessary. In truth, there may only be the flowing of experience, vivid, direct, without a center. When this shift occurs, often gently, often in meditation, the world changes. Sounds become clearer. Light becomes softer. Everything feels intimate and alive. But strangely, there's no one inside claiming the experience. Think of times when you've been fully immersed in something, listening to music, watching the ocean, holding someone you love. In those moments, you weren't thinking, I am enjoying this. There was just enjoyment, just presence. This is what the Buddha was pointing to. This is the natural state of awareness, open, effortless, and not owned by anyone. Usually, we add a sense of a self to awareness. We believe there's a me behind every experience, managing and interpreting it, but awareness doesn't need a manager. It functions perfectly well on its own. When we see this clearly, something deep within us lets go. The tension of constantly being someone begins to soften. The pressure to control or judge or interpret every moment begins to dissolve. And in its place, a quiet, spacious clarity emerges. This doesn't mean we become passive. In fact, life becomes more vibrant and responsive. When there's no ego trying to decide or control, responses arise naturally. Compassion moves on its own. Wisdom speaks without hesitation. This is what the Buddha meant when he said, then you are not here, not there, not in between. That is the end of suffering. When there is no fixed position, no self to defend, no identity to maintain, suffering has no place to land. What remains is presence, pure and free. 5. When the seeker disappears. All along this journey, there's been someone here listening, reflecting, questioning, trying to understand, the seeker. But what happens when even that seeker disappears? The Buddha spoke of something he called the unborn, the unmade, the unconditioned. He said, there is the unborn, unmade, unconditioned. If there were not, there would be no escape from the born, the made, the conditioned. This points to something that cannot be reached by striving. It's not a place to arrive at. It's not a result to achieve. It's what remains when all movement towards something becomes still. We often imagine spiritual practice as a path, as if we're walking from confusion toward clarity, from bondage toward freedom. We think we need to get somewhere. But what if that very effort to arrive is what keeps us circling in place? Ask yourself, who is the one seeking? Who wants awakening? That seeker, that part of the mind trying to grasp something, is still part of the illusion, still part of the self-story. And as long as there's someone trying to awaken, there is also someone who is not yet awake. As long as there's someone trying to reach peace, there is still someone who believes peace is missing. The very act of seeking confirms the lack it wants to escape. This is the paradox. That's why the Buddha didn't say, go find your salvation. His final words were simple and direct. Work out your liberation with diligence. Not by striving, but by quietly doing what needs to be done. Not for a self, not for an ego, not for someone trying to improve. So what's left when the seeker vanishes? Not absence, not emptiness in the usual sense. What remains is the fullness that was always here, the stillness before thought, the awareness before identity, the peace before the struggle to find peace. It's not mystical. In fact, it's almost too simple to notice. Just the quiet fact of being. Just this breathing, sensing, living, without anyone needing to claim it. And when there's no seeker, there's also no one to suffer, no one to chase, no one to doubt. There's just life flowing freely. Awareness, present, and open. This doesn't mean we stop living or caring. Life continues. Gestures arise. Choices happen. Compassion moves through us. But they come without effort. Without the weight of someone trying to be good, wise, or free. When the seeker disappears, what's left is not less. It's more. It's reality unfiltered, peace unearned, awareness